to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We got the mission statement. Okay, Kiwanis is a global organization of volunteers dedicated to improving the world, one child and one community at a time, through service to others. And our invocation today is Terry.
Father, we're so thankful for everything that you provided us, allowing us to live in this great country that it sometimes seems as though it's moving away from you. We're so thankful for the families that are represented by all the people in this room and these people's dedication to the service of others and what they've accomplished and who they've helped through the work of Kiwanis. We ask that you bless this food you provide for us and the nourishment of our bodies. We give you all the praise.
Thank you, Terry. Thank you. As I stated, we are using these facilities for through the courtesy of the Masonic Cornerstone Foundation, which now owns the building. Chuck, do you want to tell us all about that, or?
Yes, I would like to say a few words about that. We owned the building, the foundation for about a year and a half. It's not obliged. He was there and paid very nice rent to use for lodge. We just talking a little bit ago to one of the masons that he said he's been working on updating this building for 45 years. We've about got money lined up for a new roof, which we need very badly. Put in an elevator. That means all sorts of electrical work, foundation work, etc. And there are a number of other things this whole building needs. It's a well-built building, painted out of date. We appreciate the club meetings here. I'd just like to see a show of hands for all the audience who this is their first meeting in this room. It is not.
It's not.
Say that again.
How many?
Of all the audience, this is not the first meeting in this room.
So yeah,
So it is a return home. We're glad to have you back.
yeah, there is some history here, I understand, and if you had a chance, if you haven't yet, one of these weeks we will be meeting here all of June and July. I did talk to the library this morning, and they are telling me that they don't see, even with all the success we're having with the, with the COVID thing, that they don't see it opening up until after summer. So they're talking August, September sometime, maybe. So we will be meeting here. Next week we meet at Hoosier Heartland, but then June and July we'll be meeting here every week. So it'd be a great thing. Yes?
Just for a history lesson, I came here in grade school for Kiwanis Pancake Day.
Really? They had a pancake day here.
In the 60s.
Wow. And Caleb, I know, when he was in school, did some stuff here. So Caleb, you want to come on up and show us what you did then? Oh, okay. Caleb was in a madrigal thing or something here, so I thought he'd want to present that today. Larry.
Well, I can say that my first contact of being here was at my senior prom.
Wow.
Yeah, our senior prom here. No guessing things how long we that was.
Yeah, but it's a beautiful place, and they're picking on Larry back there. It is a beautiful place, and if you ever had a chance to go upstairs and see that, it is amazing what they have here. So hopefully, as we work with this and we get Chuck to take us on a tour of the place, it would be great. It's a beautiful, beautiful building. Another thing, I checked with Chuck earlier. We do not have to wear masks here if we're completely vaccinated, so we're protected against that, so appreciate that. This week, we held meetings with the top 15 from North Montgomery and Crawfordsville. We were going to do it here, but both schools decided they want to do it under their own schools, so that way they could prevent any problem or potential problem with COVID while transporting them or anything like that. They didn't want anybody sick for graduation, so we went out and presented there. We had a few Kiwanis at both of the locations, and it worked out very, very well. So appreciate it. We did present at North Montgomery, presented the check to the scholarship winner Joy Davis. Tonight, Don Thompson is doing the annual, their awards dinner or awards ceremony tonight. So even though she got the check yesterday, she'll receive the certificate today. But they'll be doing that tonight, and Don Thompson's going to do that. Crawfordsville, we presented a check to scholarship winner Lauren Hale. She was the pack line winner there. We also had, interestingly enough, I got a call on Saturday of that our district, we send one person from each school to the Indiana district to try to get a scholarship for them through the district. And we did have a district scholarship winner. So this is the fourth district winner in the last 6 years. I think Jim McCampbell told me that we're going to probably get some heat from some of the other clubs in the district and in the division because we keep winning all the time, but it shows you how great our kids are. And the winner was Megan Booster. So it was great to see that one of our members, children, won. Did she tell you about it? She did. Oh, okay. Here's a big one for if you would. I didn't have anything until yesterday. Thanks, Joe. Congratulations. Joe, I do have one comment, okay? I asked the whole group of the top 15, how many of you know about Kiwanis? And everybody pointed at Megan and they said, well, your dad's in it. Well, all I know is he goes to meetings and has lunch. So you need to tell your kids about Kiwanis, please. And she served in Key Club, so she was very, very good, and I appreciate that. We had a great time with them. North Montgomery provided us a lunch, and we then went from North Montgomery on to Crawfordsville, so it was a lot of fun. Volunteer opportunities. With summer here, we don't have all that much going on, but this Saturday at 1:16 p.m. we will be presenting on the Youth Service Bureau Radiothon on 106.3. And Mr. Long will be interviewing us, me, at 1:16, and then there's others in that time frame. I think it's a 2-hour program, Dave?
Yeah.
And, it's
not you, but other entertainment.
Yeah. It's a money raiser for the Youth Service Bureau. So you get a chance, turn it on 106.3 on Saturday. And I think it runs from noon to 2, And Dave Polly's not here, is he? No, I know Dave Polly and his wife are on right after me, so I can shut it down before they get on. So we'll do that. We'll do that well. Fundraising team. We got a fundraising team led by Jim McCampbell. So if you have any ideas, they got a lot of ideas that they're coming up with in their group. So I wanted to make sure that if you have any ideas, get with Jim and let's get that worked out. Speaking of fundraising, and everybody's lucked out because they don't have to listen to everything today, but I was going to do a presentation on some of the finances, and we are going to do that in July, but you know, we had that one fundraiser that I think somebody mentioned having pancakes here. We had that one fundraiser this year with Pancake Week. Any ideas on how much we made?
13,500.
Who else? You're a little high.
10,000.
Low.
75.
Low. It was $13,156.54. $13,156.54. So it's the biggest in history. It's the highest in history that we've ever had. This was led by Caleb Wilson, our president-elect. So Caleb, I want you to come up here, please. Because I want you to come up here. Come on up. And Caleb gets this Kiwanis pancake pin.
Hey, cool.
So, you get the pancake. So thank you for telling me a little bit about what's
So, Paul Jadell, the guy from McDonald's who did also one of the presentations a while back, he really enjoyed working with us. He thought it was great, and we had dinner last week, and he said, well, we asked him, okay, what do we owe you? We owe you something here, and you won't give us a number. And he finally said, you know what, just as long as you guys commit to continue doing this with me, we'll just call it even this year. So, you know, he was gracious enough to just give us costs this year. We didn't pay for a thing on that, so we had some piddly expenses, and other than that, it was all income. So hopefully we'll continue on.
Thanks, Caleb, and thanks to the rest of your committee. I did a fantastic job in getting that kind of money raised for our club to do the things that we need to do. So glad to see that. Member updates. Do we have any member updates? Anybody that's not here? It's great to see everybody here, and I think we have John Colley, Morris Mills, and Morris Oval on the Zoom. So glad to see them here. Hello all. Glad you're here to join with us. So it's great to be here, and we will continue doing these via Zoom also, so we can have all of this. Larry McBride's here. Haven't seen him in quite a while. The tax season is over, so he's back with us. So glad to see that. So keep on coming. Let's build this back up. As a matter of fact, I think everyone here, what we ought to do for next time we meet is bring a friend. Bring somebody else, bring an enemy if you have to, but bring somebody to our meetings so we can tell them a little bit about Kiwanis and what we're doing and try to get them involved also. So bring some friends. Birthdays, Kiwanian birthdays this week. We do have one. May 26th, Mac Petty. Yay, Mac. All right, happy birthday. Two things. We talked about the money for the building for the foundation here. We are we do have tickets for the marble game. It's open only to the members. So if you would, Terry's still selling tickets. We still got tickets up here. They're $1 each or 6 for $5. So join in on that, and I think the money is up to $141 plus whatever we collect today. So if you draw the white marble, you split the pot. So we'll be doing that. Happy Bucks. We're in the middle of the quarter for Mountie Mission. So anybody happy today? Hello. Yeah, Char.
I'm happy I got to go place to Gary, hauling my walker with me. I got to be in North Montgomery and Crawfordsville to witness those outstanding young people that are heading off to their college years.
Right. Anyway.
And that we had some part in encouraging them to do well.
Right. Karen.
There are only 2 more days of school left, and we made it through the entire school year.
All right.
These kids can sleep in, starting to...
Great. Great. Who else? Andy.
I just want to tell you, I got 4 days of work left, and I'm going to retire next year.
All right. All right. Jerry?
One, happy for Chuck Summer for making the arrangements to get us into this place. I think that's great. And 2, I'll be happy to get this thing off tomorrow.
Yeah. Dennis?
Got my granddaughter in the International Honor Society and also getting some kind of academic award through sports and athletic sports.
Great.
And I'm going to go back from Tom's Brain after 3 weeks.
All right. Good. When's the party on the boat?
Invitation of you.
Oh, okay. I guess I didn't get one. So, Caleb.
It's Sam Cooke season. It's warm, so now we can listen to some Sam Cooke.
There you go. Beautiful weather out there today. It's going to be a little bit warm. I'll throw a couple of bucks in for having all the fun that we did with the kids at North Montgomery and Crawfordsville. And it was very interesting at North Montgomery to see all of the students tell us what school they were going to, because Stu Welker was there, and there was not one that was going to IU, but I think there was like 5 going to Purdue, so it was very appropriate. So,
I'll throw another one in once I get on my first. But you remind me, my daughter also got into the National Honor Society, and my son pitched his very first baseball game on Tuesday night, a no-hitter for 3 innings.
wow, fantastic. All right. Yes, Bill.
And here's $1, and that's for our wonderful president, for the great job he did with all the awards, and for leading this time on the scholarship committee. I started as a rookie and ended up a veteran, and I had a lot of fun, and there were a lot of talented students, and I had a really tough time grading them, and it was a good experience, and that's what I look for, learning every day.
Good. Thank you, Bill, for your help, and thank you to everybody in the scholarship committee for your help. We did, we had to get those things out and get them scored, and everybody did very, very well. Bill did present at Crawfordsville High School, did present the award, the scholarship at their event. So it went very, very well, and we do appreciate everybody's help in getting those scholarships out. Anybody know how much do we spend in scholarships a year? Our club.
$37.50.
$37.50, yes. $3,750. We do 3 scholarships, 1 at each school for $1,250. Potentially, I know our future president, next president, has some ideas, and maybe we'll do some more changes to that, and we'll see what works out. But that has been very, very successful, and we really like doing that. Any more Happy Bucks? Okay. National, speaking of money and everything, I found out that today is National Ba Millionaire Day. So congratulations to all of you. It says the day honors the desire to enjoy the privilege and power associated with being financially secure. So that's very, very good. It's also National Pick Strawberries Day. So if you get any, if you go picking some, and you got some ready, and they're all available, you know where my address, right? Please. It's also National Rescue Dog Day. So if you can rescue some dogs, today's the day. I think it was a teacher at one of the elementary schools, was in the paper today. Yeah, that she had 4 rescue dogs, 4 beautiful dogs in a picture in the paper. So great day for National Rescue Day, Rescue Dog Day. So today we have with us from Trinity Mission, Ken Clarke. And Terry Armstrong was gracious enough to get Ken to come out on last minute to speak. So, Terry, you want to introduce Ken?
Well, I can do that. I don't have much introductions. Ken is the Director of Development at Trinity. As you all remember, we've had people from Trinity in past years. Some men who gave their testimonies and talked about the work that's being done there. And from my limited experience, it's one of the finest programs to treat men with addiction that I have ever been involved with. It's just fantastic. And we're so glad on short notice that Ken was able to come here. And when I talked to him about it, I just learned that I wasn't specific. I didn't realize that I'd forgotten, I guess, they also had an office in Lafayette. And so I said, Kiwanis Club, etc., and he was thinking Lafayette, and I just assumed here. And so thankfully he did some research and figured it out and got here. Otherwise, I don't know what we'd be doing for a program today.
So Terry said I could speak for about 3 hours. Is that true? Very good. So yeah, when Terry invited me the other day, it was really interesting because I was talking to a good friend of mine, and he said, "So what are you doing on Thursday?" I said, "Well, I'm speaking at Kiwanis." And I said, "Well, so am I." And he said, "I'm speaking in Lafayette." I thought, wow, I don't know what Terry's doing. He's got 2 people coming to speak. And so then I realized maybe I should find out where I'm supposed to be. And so by God's grace, I made it here today. And so to start off with, just thank you for having me here today. Thank you for your support over the years for Trinity Life Ministry, or Trinity Missions as we're also known. We've been around for 36 years. We started off in Lafayette as a homeless ministry and realized that addiction is rampant when it comes to homelessness. And so we've really focused over the past 36 years on men with addiction. Men are supposed to be leading their house. They're supposed to be leading their family. Now, women can do the same thing, but as God has told us, right, men are to lead and women are to submit to their husbands, but it's supposed to be in a biblical way, in a caring way. And so we want to teach the men how to do that, and that's what our job is. We're a faith-based ministry. We're 12 months, and if you haven't been out to the house, you get on Whitlock, you drive all the way down to the end, you see the condominium to the right. That's the prison. That's what we call it. We call it the condominium. And then our house is the old Whitlock house to the left. Every day our men have a choice. They can either serve the Lord or serve themselves. And today, they're on this side of the razor wire, is what we call it. And so they need to make sure that they're doing what they need to do. So in our program, it's, like I said, it's 12 months. And what we do is the first 13 weeks is we go through the Gospel of John, who is God, and Ephesians, what is your identity in Christ? For these men, they really don't know what their identity is. The world tells them they're addicts, that they're alcoholics, they're no good. They even tell themselves that. And that's no way to change. And the world tries to tell them, we're going to just change your behavior and then you'll be a better person. The problem is if you're just changing behavior, the first time any kind of problems, any kind of trials come up, you revert back to where you came from. So in that process, what we try to do is using Scripture, we try to change their hearts. We let God's Word speak into their lives and change their hearts. We know that if their hearts change, their behavior will change at the same time. So part of what we do also, the men that are in addiction, they've done everything they can to push their families away, to ostracize themselves. So one of the other functions that we do, we have a thing we call family ministry. We work to reconcile the families back with the men. Like I said, they've manipulated, they've lied, they've stolen. Most families, when we talk to them, want nothing to do with their men because they've been in addiction 10, 15, 20 plus years. And every time the man says, hey, I'm better now, they get manipulated and find that truly doesn't happen. So when they come to Trinity, typically this is the last resort. They've never gone to a faith-based program before. They've been usually in 6, 7, 10, 12 different programs and never really saw true change in their life. And so through that, we try to work with the families and the men to bring them back together. One of the great programs that we have with that is not only to work with families, but we also, since I'm here with Kiwanis, we work with the children. We have a children's ministry that we work with. We use a program called Confident Kids. And in Confident Kids, there's 4 areas that we focus on. One is called Facing My Feelings. What is going on? They need to understand that this is not a normal thing, right? Being in a family with addiction is not what we would call normal. And so we help them understand what do feelings mean and how do we understand those. We go through Psalms. David talks a lot about feelings through that, and we work with the children. The next class that we offer with them is called Living in My Family. We go right back to the very beginning with Adam and Eve, and how did God design the family? What does that look like? And how do children understand what that looks like? Then from there, the third class is growing through change, and we focus on Joseph, the story of Joseph at the end of Genesis. How Joseph went through change, how his brothers, if you know the story, Joseph's brothers threw him in a pit, right? Joseph's brothers hated their younger brother. And so a lot of these children see this happening, and how does change happen? A lot of times when their parents are addicts, they'll be taken out of their home. They live with grandparents. They may be even the foster system. And then when they come back, they're trying to figure out what does it look like to go through all of this change. And as you're working with children, their hearts are so precious and their minds are so precious and it's such a vulnerable age and they really don't understand what's going on. They just want to love mom and dad through that process. So we try to help them understand what that looks like. And the last one, which is my favorite one, is making wise decisions. We take them through the book of Esther and we teach them what does that look like to make wise decisions. So that's a big portion of what we do with the children to help them understand biblically what does addiction look like. And through that, the men that are in our program, it's 12 months, and we also take them through job training. We call it job training. The last 6 months of the program, they're in full-time work, and they need to learn what a biblical work ethic looks like. Most of our men have really never held a job. If they've held a job, it's only for a couple of weeks, maybe a couple of days. And what they're doing, they basically raise enough money to go out and buy more drugs. They quit their job and they go on and move forward. And that's no way to provide. That's no way to protect for a family. And the challenge is that the little ones see that. If that's what their dad is, that's what they view, that's what a man should do, right? So the young boys, as they grow up, well, that's what dad does, right? He goes out, he gets drugs, he does whatever he wants to do, and that's no way to raise a family. Or the young ladies and the daughters of the family, they look at their father as like, wow, that's what a man looks like. And what do? They tend to chase after a man just like their dad. They don't typically want to, but that's all they've ever known. And so in that process, we were going to help the men understand what does it look like to be a godly man, and what does it look like to work biblically. One of the first things that we teach them is, you know what, working every day is not always joyful. You know, believe it or not, your job is not always going to be fun. But when you work unto the Lord, when you understand that you're working for not just the boss or the person writing the check, you're working for God, that gives them a different perspective when it comes to work. When they come home from work every day, we do a debrief session. We talk to them, what does it look like to work biblically? So today, let's say I'm working for Terry, and you know what? When the guys come home, so how was your day? Well, you know, I worked for Terry. Terry was just a mess. He made me angry, and I don't want to work anymore. So Ken, what did you want to do? Well, I wanted to punch Terry today. Okay? Well, that's no way to handle conflict, right? I can't resolve conflict and stay employed like that. So we walk them through, what does it look like for Terry and I to disagree, and how do we handle that in a professional way? So those are some of the big things that we help teach the men and work through. There are a lot of other things I could probably tell you about, but probably the best thing to do is me to open the floor up and have you ask me questions. If there's things you'd like to know about Trinity, about those type of things, I'd love to answer those.
How did the young men get to Trinity?
So the question is, how do the young men get to Trinity? Well, some of the men aren't quite so young. Right now, we have a gentleman who's 58 years old. He told me, he said, Ken, you know, 3 weeks before I came, I live here in Crawfordsville, but I lived out of my truck for over 3 weeks before I came to Trinity. So that shows you, even in this environment, that there's still that going on. But how do men come? First thing is to go onto our website and fill out an application. You can do that by your phone, you can do that online, and we want to find out just a little bit more about who that person is. The second step is we interview each man before he comes. A lot of times the men who come, they're really just running away from something. They're just, you know what, I'm in a bad place here. I know Trinity is a better place. Well, that's not the kind of man that we're looking for. We're looking for the man who truly wants to change, who is really tired and broken of what they're doing, and they want to come to change. That's kind of how we get there.
How many residents do you have?
We're able to serve up to 43 men at any given time. Currently, we have 30 men at the house right now. We typically like to keep it as full as possible. We accept men once a quarter. And the question is, if that's the case, why don't you have 43 men? Well, the challenge is what I just talked about. We go through an application process, we go through an interview process, and men just want to come, but they really don't want to go through that process in there. So that tends to be a little bit of a challenge. We would love to have them there, but we also just don't want people to take up space while they're there. The wonderful thing about the ministry too is the men that come, it is no charge for them to come. We also do not accept, or we don't take federal funding for the program. So we rely on individuals, churches, businesses. They fund about 60% of the program for us. We have 2 thrift stores. We have a thrift store in Lafayette. We have a thrift store right around the corner here. Trying to get my bearings where we're at. The thrift store has been a wonderful blessing for the ministry. The thrift store equates to about 30% of our income, which allows us to continue to allow the men to come at no charge. And the other 10% are grants that we seek to do that. Question, sir, in the very back?
No, I didn't know if this was a court-type diversion program.
So some of our men are court appointed to come. They still go through the process of filling out an application. They still get interviewed. Just because the court says they should come doesn't mean they actually get to come through that process. My job as development, I'm responsible for telling people about the wonderful thing the Lord is doing through our ministry. I do communications, but my phone in Lafayette, I still probably talk to 1 or 2 families each week about that. The challenge with addiction, this past year with COVID, addiction overdoses are up over 30% over they were of 2019. And in that process, So some of the men that are coming are just, they really just come because they want to come, and they really not because they want to change. Did I answer your question?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Do you find them jobs outside so they can work and they're free to come and go, or how's that?
So so if I understand the question correct, how does the job training work? So the men, we encourage them to find the jobs. We work with businesses here in town. We work with Christy Hubler, LCS, Acuity, just about anybody who's looking for employment, which there are a lot of companies looking for employment. And the great thing about it, they love our guys because our guys really want to prove themselves in that process. We only ask them to work first shift because that way they come back to the house and we have a chance to work with them. We want them to be part of the ministry. When the men get to that phase, we have 3 phases, that last 6 months. Well, the first 6 months, we call that we are making disciples. The last 6 months, we call that it's time for them to make disciples. And so what we're trying to do for the first 6 months is teach them how does that look for you to help train other men. Because if you look at me, I've got khakis, I've got a jacket on. I'm not the look of the average ag that comes to our house. They take one look at me and go, oh yeah, you're on staff. You're supposed to be good. You're supposed to be holy. You're supposed to do all that kind of stuff. So they listen to me, but they don't always listen to me, if you know what I mean. But when we have one of the men that are in the house, they come up to our guys and say, you know, bud, you know what? I was where you were at 6 months ago, and my life has changed. And you know what, bud? Your life can change too. It's not going to be easy. It's going to be hard work. And they understand that coming from our guys a lot better than they do coming from our staff. So that work is really trying to help them understand. And the jobs that we're looking for them to do are jobs that they can really start with skills when they graduate our program. There are a lot of jobs out there, and nothing to be wrong with the entry-level jobs, but if they're making $12, $13 an hour, that does not help them raise a family, to buy a car, to rent a place to stay and get food. So the jobs that we're looking for, we're trying to get our men in position to be able to earn an income of $17 to $20 plus an hour, so that way they can sustain their living. And because if it's less than that, typically what do? They fall back to where they came from. And that's not a good situation. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Hi, are you a minister, and also do you calculate a success rate for the men who complete the program?
So am I a minister? No. I didn't sleep at a Holiday Inn last night either, for those who see those commercials. No, I just love the Lord and had a great opportunity. I was a sales manager for a payroll company in Lafayette, and this opportunity came up, and I wanted to be in ministry, and this is a great opportunity for me to serve in that. And then you asked me one other question.
The success rate of the program, how successful are they?
Sure. So what you're talking about is a word that we call, it's a big word, please don't ask me to spell it. It's called recidivism. And recidivism in that process is, what is the success rate? I would ask you, how do you define success? It depends, it's different from each organization. So if there is a 3-day program, if a man doesn't use drugs in 3 days, those programs call that success. If he's in a 30-day program and he maybe didn't use, they call that success. I'm here to tell you that if someone's an addict, there's about a 99% chance, no matter what program they're in, they will fall back at least once and return to that addiction. So our view of what recidivism looks like is, does the man's heart truly change? And that's all we can really gauge it on. A lot of times when our men graduate, they typically don't stay in contact with us. They want to move on to the next step. And we try to reach out to our men every month just to try to stay in contact with them. A lot of times men feel that there's shame, there's some guilt being attached to us, and we get that. We understand. We would say our recidivism rate, our success rate of change, having men's hearts change, is about 50 to 60%. Again, I have no numbers to back that up. And when I first came on, again, I came from the secular world. I love spreadsheets, I love data, I love information. So I said, you know what, I'm going to figure this thing out. Well, after about 4 months of trying to figure this thing out, I realized that it's like, you know, trying to keep water in your hand. It's just impossible to do that through that. So, good question. I wish I could have a better answer for you. And, but, you know, you could please pray for the men in addiction. Pray for their families through that. And if you have some ideas when it comes to that, trust me, we are all ears about that. Any other questions? Yes, sir.
I kind of heard that in some of these factories, drugs are rampant. You know, putting them back in that situation, I'm sure they're attempting, but by making them disciples, I got the impression that they were picking up guys that say, hey, you're on the wrong path. Come talk to me, let's do this. Is that what is happening?
Absolutely. So a couple of months ago up in Lafayette, we have what we call a mentor program. And you know what, if I take long, you just cut me off. I can talk for a long time. Terry didn't know that I can talk for a long time, so just cut me off when you need to. So we had a couple of months ago with our mentor program, we asked for godly men in the community to come spend time with our men, spend an hour a week and then take them to church on Sunday. Well, they met with the church up in Lafayette. They were having lunch one day and they saw outside, there was a guy sitting by themselves. 3 of our men, previous homeless men, they knew right away, hey, that guy is homeless. And the families were with them, they're like, how do you know that? I mean, just like a guy sitting there. Well, they had lived that life. They knew what that was. So they literally got up. They took the food that they had and they went over and they gave it to this guy. And they said, hey, you know what? Who are you? What are you doing here? Well, I'm homeless. He goes, you know, what's going on? He goes, well, I have no hope of anything ever happening. Well, they said, you know what? Here's some food. Here is Trinity's contact information. Contact them. Well, 2 months later, I'm in a meeting down over at the house. And this guy speaks up, he starts to tell the story. He says, you know what, I was up in Lafayette and a couple of these guys came over and they started talking to me. I'm like, you're the guy. And he goes, what do you mean? I said, you're the guy we've been praying for and the Lord actually brought him to us. So in that process, they listened to him, they listened to the guys that were in the program to do that. And our goal is really to teach these men to be disciples and then send them out into the community to help them. I mean, I met a gentleman, there was a suicide awareness walk about a month and a half ago. And as I went over to, Trinity was a part sponsor for that, I saw that there was a homeless guy there. When I walked up and started talking to him, he ended up coming to the program, but the same thing. You know, it's just trying to give these guys hope and having the men that are in the house disciple them. It's a great opportunity for them to learn. And then you're absolutely right, too. We want our men to be on the first shift. If there's anybody working for the manufacturer here in town, don't take this personally, but I mean, there's drugs all through manufacturing. And the good news is we want our men to be exposed to that while they're at the house. We drug test, we do all of those things with them. We check them when they come back, we do all of those things. But they need to be exposed to that so they can say no today. If they don't get exposed to that till they leave our program, they really don't have a place to fall back to. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
You answered my question about the drug testing.
Excellent. Yes, sir.
What percentage of the, don't want to get to exact percentage of actually complete the 12-month program?
Another great question. I wish I could have a good number for you. So we have a graduating class that started with 11 and just finished. They'll start next month. There'll be 7 of the men graduating. We have another class that started almost a year ago, started with 12, and right now there's 3 guys left. So that number ebbs and flows and goes up and down. Sometimes we'll have larger classes, sometimes we'll have smaller classes again. You know, the door at Trinity is always open. The men are not, they don't have to be there. And so we don't want to keep them there. We want them to be there by choice. So again, measuring that number, it's multiple reasons why they leave. Some men fall back to drugs, fall back to their addictions. Some men, being away from their families for a whole year becomes a hardship issue for the family. The wife, the mother is the one that's, you know, working, caring for the children, caring for the house, making sure the car is going, all those things. When the men are in Trinity, they are not paying back for any of those things. So hardship happens. There are lots of issues that happen from that. So great question. I should help with that one. Yes, sir.
What percentages are singles and families/fathers?
Another great question. You know, I would say over 50 to 60% are probably not just not just a man and a woman, but we also have, I hate to use the term baby mamas. There are some men that have 3 and 4 women they have children with. And when we have our family ministry, we encourage the whole family to come. Sometimes it gets to be very exciting. So, and then one we just recently had, and you know what? God loved these men, but sometimes they're not so truthful with us. And so 2 young ladies just recently came. We didn't know that he had been with both women and had children with both women. And one he kind of distanced himself from, and the other one he is now liking, let's just say liking. And so as we had our first meeting with them, they both came in, they took one look at each other, and their faces turned about as red as this young man here standing up. And we knew we were in trouble at that point. So we do see a lot of men, and they need to learn what that looks like, right? They've led a carefree life. They live for themselves. They've done whatever with whomever, whenever they wanted to. And they don't know what that looks like. And so one of our jobs is trying to help them understand what that is. We don't want to condemn them for that, but we also want to help them in the future. What does it look like to be a godly man through that process? Yes, sir.
What would be the average age or demographic you might have?
So average age, we accept men from 18 on. So the average age, again, it's all over the board. We have men from 60 years old to men in their mid-20s or mid-30s. I will tell you, the men that are in their 50s and 60s, they are usually the hardest men for us to work with. So think about addiction, right? They've been in addiction since they were a teenager. So now that's almost 40 years of being in addiction. Breaking that habit, it'll take longer than 12 months to break that chain in that process. Yes, sir. Another question? We're good? Any other? Yes, sir.
I'm curious, in Montgomery County, what is the drug of choice that they're mostly addicted to?
Yeah, when you name it, they do it. You know, it's whatever they can get, whenever they can get. And you know, you would think that it's just the person that's the lowest on the totem pole. That's not it. I mean, it's just the one that society doesn't want, doesn't care for. We have men that are pastors' sons that are at our treatment center. We have men from Connecticut. We have guys from Chicago, all over, all walks of life, all different ages. I think one of the things that I'm thankful for at Trinity is if you leave the program, we will still accept you to come back. Now, if you come back, there's some things, you have a higher threshold that you have to do. One of the things that are men, if you leave the program early, you have to come back and talk to our staff. You have to seek forgiveness. You don't just say, hey, I'm sorry, but you have to truly seek forgiveness of the staff. You have to explain what you did wrong, why you left, and why you came back. That's step one. So the staff has to say, yes, we will allow you to come back. Then the second part, you have to do the same thing with all the men in the house. And the great thing about that is these guys are all master manipulators. And they can spot a mile away, is this guy really genuine or if he's not genuine? So they literally take a vote and say, yes, this guy should come back to the house in that process. Other questions?
Ken, thank you very, very much.
Well, thank you. Thank you all for having me. I appreciate it.
Okay, we've come to that time of the day, and we're gonna have somebody pick out a ticket here, and part of it's been working so hard, but yeah. Okay. Well, you pick out two. Which one do you want? Okay, we'll put that one back in. So,
When I get part of it.
okay. 502246. 502246. Who's got that? Maybe I do. You got it? Okay, come on up. 502246. Yes, sir. Okay. Now, so if you see the white button is in, or the white marble's in there, okay?
The white marble.
White marble.
So what happens next?
If you pick out the white marble, you split. We had $38 today, and we had, what did we have before? Find out. Here it is.
Almost $100.
No, we had over that.
Pretty soon.
We had 141, so $179. So you split the 179 if you get the white marble.
Let's see if I can feel it.
You feel the white?
Yeah, I think I do.
Okay. Another black one. Okay. That'll carry over till next week. So thank you all for being here today, and next week at Hoosier Heartland. Okay, thank you. We're adjourned.